Hey, I'm John G.
Hey, I'm Craig B. Let's conversate. Hey there, I'm Craig.
I'm John.
And welcome back to ConBroSationalists. This one is probably going to touch a lot of people, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
It's a fairly recent, and it's one that we've talked about, kind of hitting on a little bit, but we're going to talk a little bit about the Second Amendment and the gun laws as they are in place. I think we've all recognized and we all know that recent history has shown that there's been an escalation in crimes committed with those.
Yeah.
And it's I don't understand, and I don't necessarily think that we need to have the conversation about why the Second Amendment is there. I think we need to discuss what it means to be a responsible gun owner, and what things need to change to kind of stop what's going on in the world. Because, as an American society, right, the Second Amendment is fundamental. It's a right, right?
Yep.
Or a privilege.
Yep.
It's a privilege, I should say.
Should be a privilege.
Should be a privilege. I don't. Just because it's written in there doesn't necessarily mean that every person has the same tool sets to handle the responsibility that comes with it.
Well, I think that we need to remember too, these things were put in place 1876.
1776.
1776.
So 250 some odd years ago.
Weapons were a lot different then.
Yes.
The level of carnage that you can deal with a weapon back then and today is severely different.
Yes.
I want to send my thoughts to the kids in Uvalde.
Oh, absolutely. Uvalde, Buffalo.
Everywhere.
It's
the place. I don't know if it was the supermarket in Buffalo. It was like a nail salon or something in Southern California.
Right.
Then
I think it was a church.
Or a church.
Yeah.
Now this school shooting, all within the last week or two.
Yeah, within the last 10 days.
So,
and here we are coming up on Memorial Day, and I mean, it's
people that were killed for trying to defend us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a key thing that you have to understand is that much like everything else, there are no rights without responsibilities. And I think what's happened is society as a whole has spun to this point where you can make decisions, but I don't have to follow them, and I'm going to do whatever I want for me, right? Which for the vast majority of people, that is what they're going to do. But in this particular case, there has to be something done. There has to be, and I don't know what that is, because this thing is so deep seated, and people's fundamental beliefs, and that I'm a big bad man, and I can buy a weapon, and I can vote. Oh, but I'm not old enough to go drink alcohol, but I'm old enough to serve in the military, and I'm old enough to commit an act of crime and then be held accountable to the level of an adult.
Yeah.
Right, but I think, and I'm not going to get into the politics, but I think what happened in Texas is a byproduct of a very arrogant governor making a decision, I'm going to show the federal government what I can do as governor of the state.
I told one of my customers the other day, I said, if I'm a firm believer, I have weapons.
Yes.
I hunt.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up having weapons in my house.
Yes.
Where my wife did not. So we see a little bit differently on the right to bear arms and these topics. But when I was young, we never touched a weapon unless we were going to hunt or clean or shoot.
Right.
The guns were there; they were always locked away.
Yep.
We never went to try to find the key to unlock it. We knew that we never touched it.
Yep.
We all went through hunter safety.
Yes.
Before we were allowed to hunt. We could go hunt, but we never carried a weapon.
Correct. Well, state law doesn't allow you. You
exactly.
You can't hunt without having hunter safety
exactly.
unless you're, I think, 18 or 21. Like, I can't remember.
So usually, like, we would go bird hunt, and I would take my BB gun out and shoot cams while they bird hunted.
Right.
Then I started going deer hunting, but I just walked. I went through hunter safety. We've gotten to a point in the world where if you have a disagreement, you pick up a gun and you kill somebody.
Right.
And me and my wife just saw that the other day. Somebody on Facebook had posted something about trying to find self-defense classes or something because they wanted to learn how to fight better to take care of an issue. Just put it out there in the world. And the very first comment was, go here, which was a local gun store. That was the very first comment.
Yeah, and that's...
Don't learn how to protect yourself the right way. Don't take boxing classes or anything like that.
Or martial arts or anything.
Or martial arts, which those... the reason this gentleman was wanting to do this was to go use it not in defense, but...
To be offensive.
To be offensive. And if you
in
go,
more ways than one.
Yeah, and if you go to any reputable boxing class or martial arts class, if you go in with that mindset, they will throw you out.
Yeah, you're here for the wrong reasons.
Because it's made to...
It's discipline.
Yeah, it's discipline. It's made for you to be able to protect yourself.
Right.
That's the world that we live in now. We live in a world where an 18-year-old can go buy automatic weapons easier than he can get his driver's license.
Yes. Or back to the previous conversation, adopt a child.
Adopt a child. Drink alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it harder to get a driver's license than buy a weapon that can severely impact people's lives?
Well, because if you think about it, it's fallacy and logic. Because their logic is, you're getting behind the steering wheel of a machine that weighs 2,000, 4,000, 8,000 pounds. Why? Because you could possibly kill somebody. How is this any different? As a matter of fact, you can do more damage with a weapon than you can with a vehicle.
Yeah, because
not necessarily. I don't want it to get twisted.
Yeah, because there are mass
casualty
events, like what happened was
I think France. Yes.
France, where they took that
box
moving truck.
Yeah, it was a box truck.
And ran it into a crowd of people. So bad people are going to find bad ways to do things. But we have to limit what can be done. Golly, man. 19 kids the same age or a little bit older than my kids being gunned down is...
And that's twice in the last 20 years, right? Because there's Sandy Hook, but then there was also Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, right? Where stuff has happened, where this kid, his intent was fully to go in and do exactly what he did.
And Uvalde has its own police system.
Right.
They have high fences. They have doors locked. And the system still failed.
Yeah.
So what is it going to take?
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm leading in is how do we as a society say, okay, yes, you have a fundamental right to bear arms, right? But again, like you said, that was written 260 years ago. Here's kind of the flip side of that is that it doesn't matter what the tool is. Bad people are going to do bad things, right? I think what's happening here is that the gun is just the easiest tool to get their hands on.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be 21 to buy a pistol, but apparently you can go buy an AR-15 at the age of 18.
Right.
I would much rather him went into that school with a pistol because the carnage would have been milestones less. In fact, the police may not have been so scared. The good guys that were giving guns to protect us, that were too afraid to go in and save a bunch of kids' lives.
Right.
Right? Like, I don't want to enter a school with a mass shooter that has more power than I do, but I also don't want to militarize my police either.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have to make changes. We wrote the rules in 1776, and I was watching a comedian joke about something that, like, we're not joking about, but he said that rule was written 200 years ago when it took 12 minutes for you to get one shot off.
Right.
Not when you could in 12
seconds.
In 12 minutes with that gun.
Right.
In particular, he could have wiped out that school.
Yeah, that's the key thing, is that it's not. I'm a fundamental believer in that the Second Amendment is there to protect myself from, again, if you go back and look at it directly, it says to protect yourself from a tyrannical government. Doesn't say anything about Bob down the street or Jeff across the way or John down the, not this John.
Not me.
Not but it doesn't say anything about that. And yes, you have it as a form of self-defense, right? And a lot of people, I think, get it twisted, but what's happening right now is that it's no longer a self-defense mechanism. It is a very offensive weapon. And people are doing things because, again, I think the first thing that happened, several politicians in the great state of Texas made comments about the first thing being mental health. Well, it's not all about mental health. It's a huge part of the equation, but it is not all the equation. And you can't, in good faith, right? Again, talk as much as we try not to talk about religion, you cannot, in good faith, sit there and tell me that we have done enough to stop this shit from happening. Because we haven't.
Yeah.
We haven't done enough.
I'll tell you right now, I'll give up my guns today to not see that shit again.
Yeah.
And I don't know any of those people.
Yeah. But
it
hurts your heart.
It already pisses me off enough that my kids on a monthly basis or weekly basis, I don't know how often it is, have to go through these fucking drills.
Yeah.
Like, they already have to go through these drills. Instead of learning and being children, they have to learn, hey, if a bad guy comes into the school,
what do we do?
This is the best way we protect ourselves. Well, guess what? That's not good enough.
Yeah.
It's not good enough.
And unfortunately, the only option is what do you end up doing? You end up making the school a prison, which they're already doing.
Yeah, they already have high fences. They look like prisons now.
Yeah, they have high fences. Very few of them have windows anymore.
The doors are locked.
The doors are locked. And if you follow the wonderful Ted Cruz's advice, you have one door coming in and out. So we're going to have one door. So all they have to do is they have to cause a distraction on the other end, and they open up the door and everybody funnels out. And at that point, that's absolutely asinine.
Ted Cruz, I don't know if we can actually say this or not, but he can go fuck himself. Yeah. Because the fact that we have a failing education system as it is, where teachers are pouring more and more money of their own money
of their own money
just to buy construction paper and shit so that the kids can learn the correct way, and now we're going to magically find more money to make bulletproof windows and doors in every school. Where's that money coming from when we can't even pay our teachers?
Right.
Like, it doesn't make sense. How about we just put some laws in place that'll heavily restrict all this shit from happening?
Right.
How about that?
Yeah, and the other thing too, I think a lot of what's happening, and we talked about it because I remember Columbine. I remember Columbine because I was going to school. And I just happened to be home this was late 90s when Columbine happened. I just happened to be home when my dad had the place up in Portales. I just happened to be home during that. And I turned the news on and I saw what was going on. I was like, what in the world is this coming to? Because I remember as a kid, right? They said, oh, well, these guys have been bullied. But I remember as a kid being bullied, and you know how we took care of it? One-on-one with the bully. Yep. We didn't it never even was a thought in my mind to go, and again, you talked about stuff being locked up and we never even got the keys. Well, my dad took it one step further, And even though you could see the weapons in the gun cabinet, there were no bolts in the weapons. You'd have to go find the bolts, and then you'd have to find the keys to get into the cabinet, and then you have to find the other keys to get into the where the ammo is. And that was all done on purpose. Because he didn't want the weapon stolen if somebody broke into the house, right?
Yep.
But he also didn't want us to have access to say, look, if you're going to make that decision, there's this series of checks and balances that are going to have to happen before you can go there.
Yeah.
And right now, it's way too easy. You can go to, and again, when I bought my last deer rifle, I had to wait 72 hours because that was a mandatory background check. But that's in the state of New Mexico. That's not necessarily in all these other states. And so the problem is that we're blaming the tool for all these things that happen, but it's not the tool that does it. Yes, it's extremely easy to get. It's the person that uses that tool in the wrong fashion that causes all of this carnage. And it doesn't matter what the tool is. You could have a ball peen hammer and somebody does. It's not going to be near as egregious as this, but the tool is still there.
There was a school
You got to
shooting.
ban all hammers?
There was a school shooting in Reynolds, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
There's a shotgun and a pistol used in it.
Right.
If I remember correctly.
That was at a middle school.
It was at a middle school. There were not near the amount of casualties. In fact, there were no casualties. Every instance is different.
Yes.
It was a bullied situation. People didn't take things serious.
And that's where the media kind of downplayed some of this stuff. But I know for a fact that it was a bullying situation.
It was a bullying situation, and there was some stuff and from it, what it sounds like that happened in Uvalde, it's the same thing. It was a bullied situation. The kid had a lisp and some other things wrong with him that he was perpetually picked apart about his entire life, and a couple of his friends that were still friends, I'm not sure what the timeline was before this happened, actually stepped away from him because he said that he wanted to sign up to the military to go kill people.
Which is the entirely wrong reason.
Yeah, and a couple of the people that were close to him still then actually backed away and were like, there's something wrong. The problem is, I think it was a mental health situation in this instance that there were signs that nobody took care of. If we make it to where an 18-year-old who can't figure out what he's doing in life yet, if we take away the ability for him to buy a weapon like this, not to say that every 18-year-old's going to do this, but as an 18-year-old, you're dumb.
Well,
I'm sorry, I've been there.
They've proven it though.
Yeah.
But because if you just a simple thing like getting car insurance, why do your car insurance rates drop the minute you turn 25?
Because they know that you're done being a dumbass.
Well, not
for the most part.
Not necessarily that you're done,
Yeah.
but physiologically,
Yeah.
right? Like your brain has stopped growing,
Yeah.
right? Like all the mental aspects have formed. So you can still be a dumbass.
Yeah.
Even at my age, I can still be a dumbass, right?
I know some dumbasses.
Yeah, but the thing is that they did that for a reason because your insurance rates drop when you hit that magic age.
Yeah.
And I think
It's the same thing with renting a car.
Right.
You can buy an assault weapon, but you can't rent a car.
Right.
Until you're 25.
Or in some cases you can't rent a hotel room.
Yeah.
Right? And which I think a lot of those things, I think they just need to go back and take another look at it and look at it from a completely different perspective. Other than it's my God-given right. No, it's not. This particular instance, this is a right that was given to you by the Bill of Rights and the Constitution of the United States, which is not granted in every other country, only in the U.S. where that law is there.
Unfortunately, we also used to have the right to go into any store that we wanted and pick up the item that we wanted to buy off the shelf and take it to the register.
Right.
But because people have ruined that,
Yeah.
now a lot of those things are locked up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you want to get people to stop locking up things, taking things away from us.
Yeah.
How about we put restrictions in place first?
Yeah.
Maybe try that. Instead of just having a quick ship program on any yahoo that wants a gun. I just started watching the Ozarks, and there's a guy in there that I'm pretty sure has Down syndrome of some sort, he works, he's high functioning, but like there's a part in that show where he goes and buys a gun for a kid, and the kid's trying to protect his family. You should watch the show; it's really good. But
Right.
But like literally goes in, buys an assault weapon. They're adding on sales by giving him extra big magazines and all that stuff.
Right.
And it's like, this guy has, like, you can clearly see that he has some sort of mental disability.
It's the upsell for what? The almighty dollar.
Yeah. And I watched it and I was like, that's Texas. That's Texas today and many other states. I mean, Texas is on
Texas isn't the only one.
Yeah, Texas is on blast right now. But we've got to rethink when the Constitution was written 200 years ago. It was a lot different. It was in a completely different time.
Right. Yeah, I'm in full agreement. That the problem is I grew up with a very conservative viewpoint on a lot of things. As I've gotten older and I've seen the way of the world, I fully recognize that my thoughts and ideas are not as nearly as conservative as they used to be. Why? Because if you don't have kids yourself, you begin to understand that the world works differently when you have kids. You look at it completely different when you have grandkids. And I never thought that would ever be a perspective that I would look at. But just seeing what's happened in these United States, the last, call it 3 years, the last 3 years, like, I don't understand where this is coming from. I don't understand what's going on. Like, we're literally, I feel, on the verge of another civil war within the U.S. because you've got people on the far right, people on the far left that just can't come to the table and have an open-hearted conversation about guns for whatever reason. Because it's not machismo. Any man, I think I've said this before, anyone can fight. It takes the bigger person to turn around and walk away. But what's happening now is that person that turns around and walks away gets shot in the back.
Yeah.
And it's why? I mean,
because they disagree with you.
Because
that's how we. I'm telling you, I was talking to one of my customers or something the other day, and I was telling him, I was like, the first time that I ever shot a deer when hunting, you were there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was broke about it. I was super pumped because I've hunted for years and years and never got the opportunity.
Right.
Like, whatever the case was, I just wasn't in the right place at the right time, whatever it was.
Just
finally
wasn't meant
shot
to be.
my first deer, and I was super pumped about it, but it like crushed me a little too, because I've got this giant animal laying before me,
right,
that I just took its life.
Yeah. And
I was like, if that doesn't affect you, then you shouldn't be out here with a gun, honestly.
Right. And it does. I mean, that's part of what it's a twofold thing, right? It's one, being a responsible gun owner, and two, it's being a responsible hunter. And you're going to have, and the PETA and that whole conversation is another ball of wax entirely.
Yeah,
we're not gonna get into hunting on this particular episode, because it's a whole other ball of wax. So I get impacted by that every time, because I'm thankful, right, that I am able to be afforded the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's not we're providing meals to our family, right?
And other families.
And other families as well, but we're also controlling the deer population that, as we've seen, if it doesn't get controlled, it will get out of control, and then you have diseases and other things that impact and spread amongst the deer population.
And it actually puts human population at risk.
Yes.
I mean, my brother used to tell me crazy stories when he lived in Michigan, like people were running into deer with their vehicles.
Oh, sure.
it's an everyday deal. I mean, because there's so many of them.
Right.
I mean, they're a population just like as many cars are on the highway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hazard.
Yes, it is a hazard, but as part of hunting comes responsibility in hunting, and one of the kind of the tenets of being a good hunter is being a responsible gun owner. Which I'm not saying all gun owners are bad. That's not true.
No, it's not true at all.
The vast majority of gun owners are responsible and know how to handle them and care for them and do all those things that you need to do. I think what's happening right now is you've got literally less than 1% that are kind of it's the team approach, right? You have one person that screws up on a team, and what do? You punish the whole team rather than that one individual. And I think what's happening now is you're seeing a byproduct of the societal shift and parents having to work all the time and digital babysitters, you know what I mean? Yeah. I think it's not just any one thing. It's a culmination of things that have been happening over the last 50, 60 years in the change in technology. And I don't want to say that it's that simple, but I think that's a good starting point, is to look at that. Like, why as a society we have to have 2-income families, because at the very top of the food chain, that person up there is making all the freaking money. Mm-hmm. And part of what's happening is, again, that why they're making gun sales is because, I can sell this person this particular style weapon. I can sell them this size magazine. I can sell them this scope. I can have all these add-ons because this guy up here, all he cares about is the sales. He doesn't care about anything else in that chain at all, other than bottom line, the money. And if you follow the money, and I used to support the NRA way back in the day. I don't anymore, because it's been so politicized. Because I think what it was originally founded to be is not what it is now.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because the report on money from the NRA to our political figures in the world today also came out with all this. Mm-hmm. And actually, one of the Republicans that I appreciate how he looks at different things, Mitt Romney, is one of the top paid by the NRA, over $13 million.
Oh wow! I didn't realize that was the contribution to him. But
yep. There's a whole list of them, whole list of contributions. It's also funny you talk about the NRA, because they had an event. What was it, yesterday?
But yesterday or the day before, and I think they were heavily protested. And
they were
booed, and
yeah, there's 4,000 people outside that building.
I think there was more outside than there was inside, because
Yeah.
I saw some photos of the attendance.
Yeah,
and there was a whole lot of empty seats.
But I mean, you have an event, from the NRA that says, "Hey, yeah, we support guns and gun rights and all that stuff." That then you don't allow them to have weapons in the building.
Right.
Because of a certain political figure is going to be there.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't make sense. So there, once again, right, we talked about it in the last video.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, picking and choosing on what you want to grab and hold and all these things.
Exactly.
Well, come on, like, me as a gun owner, make me wait 60 days to get a gun.
I don't have any problem with that.
Do talk to family, talk to people that I used to work with. Do your due diligence to find out if I'm a nut job or not.
Right.
Because somewhere, somehow, somebody has to know that, hey, I wouldn't give a gun to this guy.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe a few squeak through. But maybe you don't give guns to 18-year-olds where their brains are still developing. Like, maybe you put a law in place to where you can't buy this type of weapon until you're 25 or older. If I can't rent a car...
Or you have prior military experience.
Yeah, if I can't rent a car till then, why can't I buy a weapon that can take lives?
Right.
Right? Me as a gun owner, I have no problem with you putting those things in place.
Right. And I think that's the key thing here on a lot of these things, is that there is this imbalance between all these things that people want to do. Right? And at 18, you can vote. At 18, you can go to war. At 18, actually at 16 in most states, if you commit a crime, i.e. murder, or you break into somebody's house and you kill somebody in the process of that, you can be tried in as an adult. You can be executed at 16. I don't know that it's happened, but I know that there are laws on the books that discuss that. You can, again, coming back to another episode that we just talked about, was, at 12 or 13 or whatever, you can have a kid, right? Because depending upon your physiology, right?
Yep.
So there are all these things that you can do up until you're of age, but you have to wait until you're 18 to go buy a weapon. And then there's no checks and balances that says, hey, should he be having a weapon? Because they're not doing any investigation into their social media profiles. They're not talking to any of their friends, and they're not gonna.
Exactly.
And even if they were to, let's say they were to banish all guns right now, you can't go and buy them, you can't own them, you can't do it. Do you know how long it would take for the American people to give up their guns? If you did a gun a second, there's another fellow YouTuber that I saw, Bo of the Fifth Column, just did this math the other day. It would take something like 300 years to get rid of all the weapons that are in the U.S. And that's all the weapons that they know about.
Oh yeah, because there's a lot of hot weapons.
Yeah, I mean, I've had my handgun stolen years ago. I had it stolen when I came back from a road trip, and had it in my vehicle when I was on the road trip. And it's just one of those things. If I get stranded, right, like I want to have, because there are crazy people, and again, mine is mostly for self-defense.
Yep.
I never, unless I told you specifically where it was in my house, you wouldn't even know that I had one, because that's just how I was raised, much like how you were raised. And so my handgun got stolen out of my vehicle when I got back. It's just one of those things. Now, fortunately, I don't know of anything that's been used with it, but it hasn't been recovered. So I know that there are a handful of those, right? And they happen in every state. And you look at, and I'm just going to kind of play devil's advocate here. You look at Chicago. Chicago has some of the strictest gun control laws on the face of North America.
In the United States.
In the United States. And what do they have? They have the worst murder rate by handguns, not necessarily handguns, but by guns as a whole, of any other state in North America.
Yeah, but there's 3 states touching them.
Right.
That don't have the same laws.
Right, but there's still a lot of weapons trafficking that's going on there. And why do people have guns over there? What's the generally in the US, right? What's kind of the corresponding reason why people have guns?
Unfortunately, it's the demographic.
It's the demographic, but what's the biggest trade? Drugs.
Yeah.
So with drugs comes guns. I mean, it's just I hate to go there, but that's just a lot of what happens.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those things where they're living in a place where they're doing whatever they have to do to survive, and doing whatever trade they can, because again, somebody gets caught up in something stupid at a young age, and a lot of their rights get taken away, and then they're already behind the 8 ball.
Yep.
And then it's a slippery slope. I mean, I don't know the fix.
It's a hard society to live in whenever you're doing everything correctly.
Yes.
It's very easy. It's very easy to look and be like, wow, I could make this much money, well, as long as I don't get caught.
Right.
I can make more money than my mom and dad do, and I work half as much.
Yeah.
It'd be stupid as a young 18-year-old not to fall into that lifestyle.
They see, and I think what's happened is
It's
a lot
called
of
money.
yeah, and I think a lot of it gets glamorized.
Yeah.
You know, you've got these. I don't know specifically, but I know I've heard there are rumors, right? So I'm not going to call anything out, but there are rumors that a lot of these up and coming quote unquote rappers, that's where a lot of their money comes from, is being in part of that game, right?
Well, I mean, you see it with players in the NFL and everything else. Like, you've got these guys that are making millions of dollars, but yet they were still probably selling drugs to support their family while they went to school to try to make it to the NFL.
Yeah.
In hopes. And then once you get caught in that game,
you're kind of in it.
You're in it.
Yeah, it's tough to break away. It's a lot like the mafia was, right? Like you get
once you're in, you're in.
Yeah, once you're in, you're in, and it's generally till death do you part, like marriage is supposed to be. But well, a lot of times it doesn't happen that way. But
like you said, you played devil's advocate. We don't know what the right thing is, but what we're doing today, and political figures saying it could have been a lot worse, or we just need to put more bulletproof doors and windows, or get rid of doors and windows to our schools. That's not the right answer.
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
I will fight you tooth and nail till I'm blue in the face.
Yep.
That is not going to change, because like you said, you make a distraction over here, and then guess what?
Yeah.
It leaves this entrance open. We can't put armed guards at schools, because what happened a couple days ago, there were armed guards, and guess what?
They at that point they were outgunned.
They were outgunned. Then the police show up, and they're still outgunned. Somebody makes a bad decision that changes the aspect of how they go about the situation, even though calls are being made from students inside the building pleading for help. You're telling to put armed guards at schools, but we did that and it failed.
Right.
So what's the next step? We just keep saying it could have been worse? Is that what we...
Why are we even making that comparison?
Like...
It could have been. Well, it should have never happened.
Should have never.
Should have never happened. So instead we're saying, the only option, it could have been worse.
Yeah.
Fuck that. It shouldn't have never happened.
Yeah.
Should have never happened.
And it could have been worse. Can you say it couldn't have been worse because your kid wasn't there?
Right. Because your kid's in private school, and that's what you're considering is the option.
Well, guess what?
Is private school.
Guess what? One of your kids coming out of private school is going to be one of those kids shooting up one of those schools.
Right.
Because those schools are just as fucked up as the public ones.
Yeah. It's not a logical argument, and that holds absolutely zero water, because moving forward, right? This is where we are. How do we fix it so that the generations to come look forward to a better day? Because right now, what we're leaving behind is an absolute train wreck, and it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable, because if we continue to go down the way that we're going, the American dream is a nightmare, and I don't want to be any part of that.
Oh no, I'd leave today if I could.
Yeah, because
honestly, we're a laughing stock.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people see it, but if you talk to European countries and stuff, like, we are a laughing stock in the world. We're supposed to be so high and mighty and better than everybody, right? Because we put ourselves on this pedestal.
Right.
Well, guess what? We're so backwards and so quick to make any decisions that can affect people's lives. We're just like, well, everybody will get mad for a little while and then it'll go back to normal. Well, then guess what? These shootings and these terrible things keep happening more and more often. And it doesn't matter who's in office, who's in control, who wants to take guns, who doesn't want to take guns. Like, I was on the other side of that fence 5 years ago.
Right.
Right? You had the mass shooting in Vegas. And I remember having a very hard conversation with my brother about, no matter what you do, if you take that gun away, he would have found another way to do it. Conversation.
Yeah.
That's who I was 5 years ago.
I mean, and
today I will tell you that it's not that. No. We have to do better.
Yeah, we have to do better. And the only reason why I make that correlation between the gun being a tool and a hammer is because that's the argument that's being thrown out. And it doesn't. The thing is that whether it's a weapon, a gun, a rock, a knife, a box truck, bad people are going to do bad things. The issue is that you try to stop those from ever happening, and stop making it so damn easy to get.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, right, like, I can't wait till I'm grown up. Now I'm grown up. I want to go back to being a kid.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, I didn't have to worry about any of this.
No, we did under the desk exercises.
We did tornado drills.
But it was for tornado or earthquake.
Right.
It was never about active shooters.
Yeah. That was never even a thought in anybody's mind.
Like
the American society would get to that point where it's just, I mean, it's almost every week at least, it seems that there's some mass shooting event.
Yeah, there's been 288 mass shootings in the United States already this year.
Yeah.
And we're in May.
Right, we're only 5 months in. And everybody says, it's because we've been cooped up for 2 years. No, we haven't been cooped up for 2 years. We had to do things because of a global pandemic, right? And so now it's just another excuse. Stop accepting mediocrity and own your shit.
Ask for better.
Be better. You know, that's the thing.
If it takes a pandemic to stop school shootings,
lock it all down again.
Fucking sign me up.
Yeah, lock it all down again.
If my kids don't have to continue to learn how to protect themselves, everybody is laughing at that lady that was on the news, a year or so ago about putting that bulletproof plate in her kid's backpack. If every one of those kids would have had one, how many kids would have turned out better?
Right.
You don't know, right?
Yeah.
But
some things are said
shitty to even have to think about doing.
But some things that are said in jest are steeped in truth.
Yeah, like fuck putting a laptop in that back pocket.
Yeah.
And put a bulletproof plate.
Yeah.
Because that's the world that we live in.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to.
I mean, right now, the things that I'm seeing, we're not supposed to be a third world country, but we damn sure don't act like it. We don't.
Yeah, I know we're falling farther and farther.
Yeah.
We might be on the verge of fourth world at this point.
Yeah, because you look at the differences between the haves and the have-nots and what's happened over the last couple of years. That divide has gotten wider, and so people are doing these things, and I'm not saying that they're all done for the same reasons. I think the vast majority of them are done because it's people are reaching out for help and they don't know how to reach out for help.
Well, there's not help.
Right?
It goes back to what we've talked about now.
Yeah. There's no resources.
Yeah,
for
there's
those,
no resources
at any level.
Or if there are resources, you have to dig and dig and dig to find them.
Yeah.
I mean, I work in a fairly conservative company, and whether it's a facade or if they actually care, I hope that they actually care. They put a lot of inclusion stuff in all of the things that we do. All of the emails that we started getting this month all had a little blue hyperlink because it's mental health awareness month.
Right.
Like they push all this stuff on us so that we know that we have resources. Now, are they just trying to look good in the eyes of the world? Maybe. I hope not. I hope they legitimately care.
Right. I think we've had this conversation a little bit too about, at the end of the day, most companies don't care about you because you're just another number, and if you get run over or hit by the beer truck or win the lottery and disappear, they'll find somebody else to come in and replace you. That's just the business of being in business, right? They have to. There is a reason why they do the things that they do. The problems that are there are, as we've seen during the pandemic, that divide got big and got enormous, and so those billions or trillions of dollars that these people are earning in revenue, right? That money could be distributed amongst the company employees to go back into the community to give these resources better tools to handle the events that occur because of this. Because it kills me because there was a 11-year-old girl who one of the things that she thought of, and why the hell an 11-year-old has to think about this,
I know where you're going,
is to cover herself to pretend
in her friend's blood.
Yeah, in her friend's blood, to pretend that she was already killed. I'm almost 50 years old and I never would have thought of that.
Yeah.
But the fact that an 11-year-old girl has to think about that, you can't tell me that from this moment forward and this day on that she's not going to have some sort of
she's fucked.
PTSD from that.
Yeah, no, she's fucked the rest of her life.
Yeah.
That will resonate in her.
Yeah.
Not only did she watch multiple of her friends be gunned down, but to take somebody else's blood, like that's a full grown ass adult thought.
That's an absolute adult decision.
That she had to make at 11.
Yeah. And I have to give her mad props for even considering that, because I'm telling you right now, that would not have been a thought that would have even entered my mind.
Yeah.
Would be to do that. And the thing is that these resources that we're talking about are not only just in the prevention, but they're talking about post incident as well, because these kids and these kids' families are going to have to contend with this for years to come.
If the kids' families survive.
Yes.
The one guy that lost his wife or whatever ended up dying of a heart attack.
Right. A couple of days later.
Yeah, a couple days later, because all they can figure is that it was the heartache.
Yeah.
Right now, maybe the news is blowing that up. Maybe it's not, right? But there's a lot of times that you see in history of older couples that soon as the husband dies, so does the wife. It's like they were just staying alive for the other person.
Yep.
And the grief of losing that person was just enough to finally pull the plug on themselves.
To put a Hollywood spin on that, Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds.
Yeah.
Carrie Fisher passed away, and like less than 24 hours, her mom died.
Yeah. Like, man, it's terrible. It's terrible, and we have to do better.
We have to expect better. And we can no longer accept these people in office in political positions to stand by and continue to make these wild ass ignorant claims that they've made. And you know exactly who I'm talking about. I'm not going to give you I'm not going to give you any names.
Yeah, and
those people have to be removed from office.
And the problem is how as a politician do you make a decision for the people when you're taking $13 million? And Mitt Romney actually looks at views different than most right-wingers. Like, he actually has some bipartisan in him. Not a lot, and sometimes he's a snake in the grass. But how does a Mitt Romney take $13 million from the NRA and make a educated decision for the people?
Right.
And he's not the only one on the list. There's about 15 to 20 of them, I believe. Like, how do those people make decisions for us when they've got millions of dollars being pushed into their political careers?
Right.
Like, our system is screwed up from the top down. I ask that everybody, like, go look at, like, Represent Us. They've got a huge breakdown of how the political system works and why it's broken, and it's not a Democrat Republican view of it. It's literally telling you this is how it works today and why
right.
It shouldn't work that way. And when we're padding politicians' pockets with millions of dollars from different companies, they're not making decisions for us. They're making decisions for them.
Correct.
And it needs to be looked at differently.
Yes. And so one of the things that's always kind of been as part of the political machine, and then I think we'll kind of wrap on this, is that a two-party system is always going to have flaws.
Yep.
It really needs to be a three-party system, because then you have equal distribution amongst the three. You can't have one party that gets the majority and then that's all you have. But then you also need to implement term limits for every politician, so there are no more career politicians. I think what happens is that new blood breeds ingenuity.
Yeah,
right?
New ideas, of course.
So, and again, it's in any aspect that you have. Sometimes you're too caught up in the incident to really understand what's happening, that sometimes you need a fresh set of eyes to come in and look at something differently.
Yep.
That's going to bring in the ability to bring some resolution to this. The career politicians have got to stop. They need to be 2 terms on any platform, on any political party, whether they're running for Congress, Senate, House of Representatives, whatever. It's 2 terms, period, end of story.
Yeah.
The President of the United States can only be elected twice. That's it.
Why can't the rest of
In totality.
Yeah.
Right? Not back to back. He can be elected once and then
Yep.
and then get elected again. God forbid that doesn't happen this next time around. I don't think so, but we'll see.
Yeah. We'll see.
But I mean, I think FDR was the last president who was elected to 3 terms, and then after that, they said no. We need to nix that, and we need to make it 2 term limits in total. And I think that needs to be the same thing for every office. You spend so much time in this one, and then you move into another one, and then you move into another one. And if you get elected to 8 terms, and that's 32 years or 16 years or whatever it is, at some point you've got to get out because you're old, and I'm going to get racist here, your old white man style of thinking has got to go.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer carrying the mail
Yeah.
and delivering what the American people need. It's just not.
Yeah, nobody wants Pelosi in there still. Nobody wants the other guy.
Schumer
Schumer.
or McConnell.
McConnell. Nobody wants Marjorie Taylor Greene. Nobody wants all these crapshoot people, right, that are making... I mean, Pelosi already made a career of it. MGT is one that's trying to make a career.
I don't think she's going to make a career. I think
she will.
I think her term's done.
Yeah, I think it is too. But I mean, nothing surprises me anymore.
Right.
We've got to get rid of these people, like on both sides of the fence. It seems like one side's a little crazier at the moment, but I know everybody's got skeletons.
Right, but again, it comes back to, like I said earlier, that's a pendulum that swings, and it's either extreme on one way or extreme on the other, when really it needs to be somewhere in the middle to maintain that balance. And we just, right now as the American society, we don't have the balance.
We don't have it.
We just don't.
It's just like when I started working for the company that I worked with, we had a problem. Nobody had ever addressed it. I started working there and I found a solution to this problem. Nobody else had even thought of it. And now it's used in all of the stores in our surrounding area.
Right.
Because it was a fresh set of eyes coming in.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do if we put some of those fresh set of eyes in our political system? We start thinking about things differently.
Yes.
Give some of these older people that have never moved up in office, even maybe giving them a chance to make bigger decisions. Right? There's some people out there with really good ideas, but they've never been voted into a position to actually make the decisions.
Right.
Something's got to give.
Yeah, and because if it doesn't, at the end of the day, the kids are the ones that are going to suffer the most.
They're already suffering.
Yeah, and it's just going to get perpetuated. It's just going to get exacerbated where they're going to. I don't want my grandson to grow up in a world where where what's happening right now is acceptable, because it's not. I mean, did you watch Jimmy Fallon the other night?
No.
No, not Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Kimmel.
No, I wish I would have. I saw just a snidbit.
Oh, dude,
he was
emotional about it because he's got kids. You know,
Steve Kerr, the owner of
the head coach of the
Golden State Warriors, flat out said, "We're not going to talk about the team. We know what the team is doing.
Yeah,
we know where we're at. This is what I'm going to talk to you about."
Yeah. What are we doing? What are we doing?
While the people making the decisions it could have been worse.
Yeah, that's not acceptable.
We need to put better doors on our schools.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's not acceptable. And if that's your only excuse, it's time for you to leave the political position that you're in and let somebody else in, because that mindset is not conducive to the American society.
Yeah, and we're not at all trying to pick on Texas. Unfortunately, they're in the limelight.
They're in the limelight right now, absolutely.
Yeah. But there's been a lot of failures in that state over the last couple of years.
Oh yeah, and not just minor ones. No, I mean massive ones.
And the leaders always seem to turn tail and leave country when
Ted Cruz isn't called Flood Cruz for no reason.
Yeah, when the going gets tough. So we apologize to all the Texans out there that have different views or the same views. We're not trying to pick on you guys.
Right.
Unfortunately, you're just in the limelight.
Yeah, and again, this is just two schmoes, outside opinions on the way that we see things, and at no point is any death caused by a gun tolerable, whether self-inflicted or inflicted upon by somebody else, right? It's not tolerable. But we have to figure out a way to make this better, because this is not sustainable. And it, like I said, the kids are the ones that are gonna be just absolutely messed with the most, because they're growing up in a world in the U.S. that I never would have expected. I would have thought,
Well, now at this point, we've been doing active shooter drills in schools long enough that the active shooters today know what those drills are.
Right.
So they're going into these schools highly educated.
Yeah.
On what they need to do and how.
Yep. They know the ways to kind of beat the system, I guess. Yeah. Kind of circumvent the parameters that have been put in place. So
yeah, it's
time for some new blood and some new. I apologize. I didn't mean that.
Yeah.
It's time for some new ideas and a fresh set of eyes, because what we're doing is just not.
Yeah.
It's not carrying the mail.
And listen to the people around you, right? Not like, if somebody makes a weird comment, you need to tell somebody, and not saying that telling somebody's going to fix it either, because there's been a slew of balls dropped on where somebody tried to put information to a higher power that somebody could do something, or that somebody wasn't right, or whatever the case may be. But maybe the one time that you speak up and say something and bring attention, maybe that's one less time that we have to see this crap on the TV.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I have a new sign back there. I don't know if John, you can see it.
Yeah,
but
I saw it earlier.
It says, "Work hard, be humble, be kind." I think right now the world needs a lot of kindness, because what we're seeing is nothing. There's no compassion. There's no humility. I don't even have the words to express what I'm seeing, and I don't want that. Like, I didn't grow up in that.
I didn't either.
And right now, your kids are dealing with it. My grandson is fixing to have to deal with it, and it's just absolutely crazy to think that that's accepted and that we're going to tolerate that, because we won't. And the American people have a strong voice when they're unified and they are together in the fight. And if you continue to make dumb decisions, you're going to see how unified we are, because those of us that wield the most power is at the voting machines. And that's where you need to go. You need to get out. You need to vote. As much as people don't like and they think all these things about the voting mechanism, there wasn't a problem for 200 years. There's no problem now. Get out and vote and let your voice be heard.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. Honestly, that's the only way that we can hope change will actually take place.
Right.
So,
yeah. So
love your kids.
Yeah. Love on your kids, and love on those kids that are closest to you and your family.
Yep.
And because at the end of the day, that I think we've said this in a couple of other episodes as well. The kids are our future, and they have to be able to make it through the education system to help and impact those changes and affect those changes that we need to see. Because it's obvious that whatever we're doing right now ain't working.
The leaders of today can't be tomorrow.
No. No. So I think we've kind of again, this is another one of those topics that I think we could continue on and on and on with, and it's we're just kind of circling around the same things, but it's I'm so distraught over what's happening, because it's just so crazy that there's been that many significant events where the loss of life has been so high, just in the last 10 days.
Yep.
And with this being, I don't know when this episode will come out, but with this being Memorial Day weekend, just remember how we got here. Remember why we celebrate this weekend, because there are members out there who have not come home, who fought to give us these rights, to give us the opportunity to sit here and have this conversation and express our emotions and express our anger and express our frustrations, and do it in the manner that we have here, because some people just don't have this same opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to speak for those that can't, and say, step out, do the right thing, and vote, and let your voice be heard. I'm Craig.
John, thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you in the next one.
Hey, so thanks for watching. Make sure that you go hit the like and subscribe. Make sure notifications are turned on so you get the latest videos. And remember, never stop conversating. If you want to send us topics, send those to topics@ConBroSationalists.com.